What does consent mean?
When doctors and dentists and nurses ask me for my permission, for if I want it to happen, if I have any problems with that.
To me, consent means being explicitly asked if I'm comfortable with something happening to my own body.
Consent for me is about me being part of the decision. It's about my life.
Basically, it's interpreted as my free will to represent myself and my own needs.
To me, it means that it's my will and preference. It's my decision. It's what I want.
What was your experience of being asked for consent?
I was in the doctor's and they were explaining everything when I had the questions and they were answering them and I understood. When I went to the dentist, they didn't tell me what happened. They were explaining loads of complicated, like scientific stuff, I guess. I didn't know what was happening.
I was 15 at the time, and they just kind of, the dentist, the orthodontist, did only ask my mother for consent if she wanted me to have the braces, whereas I didn't really get a say in that.
I've had a number of hospital stays in my life, and so there would have been lots of opportunities for consent, starting off with the going into hospital in the very first place, or then it was treatment while I was in hospital. There was also consent around who I wanted to deal with or who I didn't.
A person contacted me at my home, but managed to speak to every other person in my household except me. The person making the call felt that, as a person with a disability, they would have to speak to my, as they called it, next of kin, which is really, really odd. The bottom line was that as a person with a disability, somebody else would have to advocate on my behalf, or I wouldn't be capable of representing myself.
I presented to a doctor who gave me an option. And the option sounded great. And on the spur of the moment, I made a decision. And I suppose I made it also on that doctor knows best. So I didn't question the doctor. It was a near fatal experience. And there were other options which should have been offered to me.
How did that make you feel?
Relaxed and happy that I knew what was happening.
I just felt unimportant, or I felt like my opinion or my sense of control over my own body was kind of taken away from me at that point.
At times when I wasn't heard and I wasn't listened to, it made me feel very much less of a human being. It made me feel so small. It made me feel like I just wanted to curl up and disappear.
It made me feel more angry than it did make me feel sad. There are people with more profound disabilities who probably could be, could be sidestepped or could be made much more vulnerable by this.
It isn't consensual for people with dementia in many cases. This is what we think. And you're vulnerable. It can have a devastating effect.
How did that affect your experience of the service?
It's definitely affected my trust in my own orthodontist and just trusting that he is doing everything correctly.
I would just show up, and so I was in the room, but I wasn't particularly participating. I was physically there, but it wasn't helping me.
It makes me not really trust the decisions they're going to possibly make on my behalf.
It actually took me when I say a long time, 2 to 3 years to build any type of trust. But building that trust was so difficult.
What would have helped when you were being asked for consent?
Instead of exclusively talking to my parent, talking to myself and making me feel included in the process, so fully explaining what would happen directly to me.
I think if you're interacting with another person, the first thing you do is interact with that person and ask them the questions, and if difficulties emerge, well then maybe you need to seek a different course of action. The precision and the efficiency and the value of the services or the care is so much better directed when people don't make assumptions, when they speak to the person directly themselves.
Before you even get to the conversation, it's about the environment that you're in, having several checkpoints of, do you understand that doesn't make sense to you, or explain that to me in a different way, and take it away from this very medical thing and make it a more human conversation.
I think time is important. I needed to sit and have that conversation and look at all the difficulties that it can bring and all of the things that needed to be spoken about.
Why is consent important to you?
Because it's my body.
Because it makes me feel like a valued patient, and that what I say does have an impact on what happens to me.
It's about a choice that I have, that I'm allowed to make, and that I have the right to make, and that I should make. And it's mine, and I'm doing it with you rather than you doing it to me.
It's basically a human rights issue.
I have my voice. I have my decision that I want to make. Whilst I can, and when I can no longer make the decision, I have somebody to assist me to make that decision. But I want it to be my will and preference.